And when we go to Mark's Gospel, but earlier on, we see this scene where Jesus has gone to he goes to the temple, and he sees a tree with leaves on it, a fig tree. He thinks, okay, so it's leaves on it, so there should be figs. And he goes looking for figs, and there's no figs on it. And he curses it and says, you're not going to have any fruit from now on. You're not going to survive. You're a dead tree. That's it. He cursed it and caused it to die. You don't see anything at that point. It's just there. He's cursed it and that's it. And one sees this as a symbol of Israel, which is bearing no fruits. And it will be destroyed. And of course, Israel is destroyed in the year 70. No matter what these guys are doing in the Holy Land now, with what they call the State of Israel, that is not the reconstitution of the nation in any deep spiritual sense. The nation is over for now anyway. But anyway, back to the point about the tree. They're coming back again in the morning, Jesus and the apostles, and it says in chapter 11 verse 20, as they passed by in the morning, they saw the fig tree withered away to its roots. So now we see that when Jesus cursed that tree, it just looked the same as if he hadn't cursed it. But the next morning it's withered away to the roots. And Peter remembered and said to him, Master, look, the fig tree which you cursed has withered. So they're amazed. Just because Jesus spoke words at this tree, it just kind of became dead. So Jesus answered him, have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, and I guess he may be looking at Mount Hermon or the Temple Mount at this point, who knows where he's looking, but he says, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. So, we can theoretically, I say theoretically, Jesus says we can cast mountains into the sea. So he goes on, therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you receive it, and you will. And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also who is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. That's one for the born-again Christians, that last one, because they say you don't need to ask forgiveness because you're forgiven already. Jesus says, forgive so that your Father will forgive you your trespasses. But ladies, that's not my theme. That's not my theme. My theme is this. Jesus is saying, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea, that can happen. So we Christians should have this power. Yet we don't cast mountains into the sea. None of us are doing that. But when he says, he gives some conditions that must obtain for this to be a possibility. He says, you must not doubt in your hearts. Well, here's our problem. We look at a mountain, we look at a hill. We say cast yourself into the sea, we're going to doubt. We're doubting. And so it doesn't happen. So we can see why it doesn't happen. But if we were in a place in our faith that we did not doubt, this, if it were God's will, that is, it's not like, oh, I feel like casting a mountain into the sea today. No, that isn't going to happen. That isn't the way it is. I'll explain about God's will in the first letter of St. John, where he says, it is doing things according to the will of God that we're talking about when we say he will answer prayers. So if for some reason the casting of a mountain into the sea was appropriate, maybe a marvel to convince pagans of the gospel, then it would be done if we don't have any doubt. We may want to evangelize pagans with the best will in the world, But if we doubt, the mountain will stay put. All right, so no doubt must exist in our hearts. And we must believe that what we're saying is going to come to pass. Then it will be done. So, he says something else, so it's easy to miss. Believe that, if you ask for something, believe that you receive it. So when we're saying to the mountain, be cast into the sea, we've actually, as we say it, we've got to believe that we receive it. It's like we're not waiting to see. We believe it's happening immediately. And then he says we will. So our mental disposition at this point has got to be really rock solid. So forget about mountains then. Is that it? It's just about mountains? No, it ain't about mountains, because Jesus was cursing a tree at this point. What he's getting at is, you might be saying, well, look, if you see a tree and you want to curse it, if you believe it'll be cursed, it will be cursed. But actually, no. Jesus had a point to make about Israel, and it's fruitlessness. We've got no point to make about trees, unless again, there might be pagans who believe in a mystical tree that they worship, because a lot of pagan religions revolve around a great tree. You know, the oaks of England had a role like that, I think, for the Druids. So as well as, say, chopping them down, one can also one can curse them, and then the next day all their leaves are withered and the stump is all withered, and that would convince the pagans. That's a good reason to curse a plant. But otherwise, is it just about then trees or mountains? No, it's a general thing. Anything that we see that is an obstacle to us, we can, if we have sufficient faith and do not doubt, can affect a change, a breach with the laws of nature. Because mountains don't move, fig trees don't wither, unless there's some force of nature acting upon them. If it's the force of faith, of course, that's contrary to the laws of nature.